after which I decided that, probably this is not where my high lies. Okay, so I wanted to get my hands dirty, understand operations in organizations, how to literally go behind the curtain and figure things out. And that's where I partnered with another a friend of mine who had just started a F&B enterprise. And along with him, I was the CEO of that brand. We basically expanded from one location to about 4 cities across India in a span of about a year and a half. So that was a good journey in a completely different terrain, so to say. So from tech to F&B, it was a huge transition. But I think you keep learning through every part of your life, and you just keep adapting it as you move forward. And that's exactly is what's happened to me. Post which, we kind of underwent a little bit of evaluation of that entire setup, and we sold the entire business to another firm, okay, another chain. And post which, me and my friend, who I know probably for the last, I think, close to 17, 18 years, he was in Finland. I'm basically from a place called Goa. And, he said that, okay, I'm coming back to India. Those kind of conversations were always on.
Right.
And being in Finland, because he was part of Nokia over there, and he comes with a similar work experience like mine. He said that this electric vehicle thing is a completely evolving environment and ecosystem which is coming together, and we should probably, if we are planning to do something, we should do something in that space. It'll be pretty exciting. And me coming from Goa, knowingly, unknowingly, tourism runs in your blood. So we said that why not bring these two unique concepts together, electric vehicles and tourism. So, we obviously were letting go of whatever we were doing, got into this whole time, did a lot of market research, went to a lot of people. And this was early Jan 2018 when we actually incorporated the company. But coming from the experience that we held, we said that before we go to the actual consumer, we'll need a lot of whiteboarding to be done, a lot of research to be done, and that's what happened. So over 8 to 9 months, we did a lot of research, a lot of partnerships were built before we actually went live. And end of November 2018, we launched in Goa. We said that it's a great market to start off, not just because I'm from that place, but essentially it's a 365-day holiday destination. You get international as well as domestic clientele. You have the best 5-star properties around. You get events, collaboration. I think all of us know what Goa stands for, right? And post that, what we put together was an experiential tourism package of sorts. So if you want to experience BeLive, what you get is, first of all, electric cycles, which is a novelty in itself in India. So the entire journey of those 2.5, 3 hours is completely, clean and green, without creating any sort of, carbon footprint. And besides that, what you also get is a complete package of art, culture, history, food, music, just about everything about that particular place. So just like you go on Book My Show and book a slot for your own self, you take a morning slot or an afternoon slot, you do the same, enjoy the journey, come back to the same place where you started. It's as simple as that. And while lots of people were doing that, we said that, it's a completely unstructured industry. Let's put a brand together for the same. And in about a year's time with our pilot just in Goa, we kind of, reached the #1 slot in TripAdvisor, purely based on, the ratings which our clients gave us. And this I'm talking about among some 240 plus other outdoor activities which were on. So once we realized that, okay, this is working well, we said that, okay, let's move to other destinations. So today we are present in 7 states across almost 12 plus locations, uh, tied up with almost all the premium properties like the Taj, Leela, Club Mahindras of the world. We have a long-term contract with Goa Tourism as well as Pondicherry Tourism. So we are the official brand of these tourism, boards in across India, which makes us, a little different from the riffraffs which are present all across. So good journey, and obviously, it didn't come from our own money. We had a seed round when we were a plan on paper, and then just before our expansion, we started our pre-series A round, which is still on. And the last one, the last guys to come on board in that, series were the Mumbai Angels, which you rightly mentioned in the beginning. So the journey is just begun. Our idea is to establish ourselves as an electric vehicle mobility services company. So tourism being the first one of them. The next one that we are coming out is something equally exciting, which should get launched by middle of June. So you'll have to watch this space for that. Thank you very much.
That's actually very inspirational as well. Like coming from a tech background and leaving a fixed pay job, pay scale, a fixed paycheck, sorry, is actually a difficult decision to make.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So next, Priyanshi, could we have your story and the idea about how you started with your journey? You muted 1 minute.
Yeah. Hi. So how we started? So we started from Indore, Madhya Pradesh, and because we were there, me and Ishan both were there. Ishan was studying in Bangalore previously. He moved to Indore. I knew him then, like in 2016. I knew him from past 5 years then. So he moved to Indore to start his first company. That was his service-based company. Ishan is my other co-founder in the company. So I was studying. I was in the last year of my MBA, and it's when actually what happened. I was sleeping. It was like around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the night when Ishan called me and narrated me the idea of Instacar. At that time, like, the name was also not decided. We actually decided, so someone else decided the name was us. We were like, okay, sold for the idea, and we were like thinking, okay, whatever name we keep, we just want to be build a like tech product and make it like operationally good. So these were the things. So he narrated me the idea. So initial idea was we wanted to create Airbnb for taxis. Like, as in, if you have the car and suppose you go to the office and your car is there for like 10-12 hours, why don't you just rent out the car and earn the money out of it? So that was the idea that we initially started with. And we did market research, and there are actually some government policies which do not allow us to rent any other like cars. We cannot run all the cars in the taxis. So like we just experimented the market research for 3-4 months. And then later on we realized outstations also a wide market which is not catered at that moment of time in 2015-16. So we were solving the problem of finding the correct car and the correct driver for the outstation rides. Even me and my parents were traveling like long distances, like outstation from Madhya Pradesh to Rajasthan to Gujarat to Uttar Pradesh. We were traveling, like we were doing road trips. And always the concern was we should find the correct driver who can like be very courteous towards the family, because it's a like long trip and all these things. So we said, okay, let's do outstation rides. So with 2 interns, with 2 mobile phones, we just started like Instacar, just onboarded few cars in Indore and Bhopal, which is near Indore. And we did like Indore to Bhopal, Bhopal to Indore kind of thing. And it was like all on call. No product was developed, nothing was there. And we knew from day one, this is a operationally heavy business. So we started raising funds. So in around July, we raised the fund. And after that, we started building the product. And also the funny thing is, we registered the company after raising the amount. So like this was the story. Then like we started building the product, we hired the team, and then we spread ourselves into 7 cities in India. And we were doing like pretty good in the regions of Maharashtra, like especially in Mumbai, Pune. We were doing like really good. We were among like number 1 in outstation ride in those regions. But like it was like 4 years into the business then. We moved to Bangalore in 2019 because of Techstars program, and we were like thinking, okay, so since like creating Airbnb for taxis to outstation rides to moving into like specific niche of the like finding out who are your like actual customers. During the Techstars program, we did research about how the consumer behave in the city like Bangalore, and who are the customers we want to cater to, and what is our product market fit. So though our learning curve was like huge, like 4 years, but after that program, we landed up to the correct product market fit as well. And we decided to pull back from all the cities. Like it was a wise decision. Like many people said, Ki, why are you like pulling back from all the cities? So we pulled back from all the cities and we just focused on Bangalore so as to become number one only in Bangalore, and also serving a specific use case. So from outstation to just like serving outstation, right, to what we are doing currently is we just say we deliver safe, reliable and quality service. Now the use case can be anything. So in Bangalore, though we cater to airport rides, but our USP, safety, reliability and quality. So that is what we are doing right now. And yeah, that's it for the story. That is how we started. And I was not thinking to be an entrepreneur. I just like jumped into it. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. Ishan was more entrepreneurial than me. So I was like, okay, let's see what happens next. And turned out to be like really well.
And since then, there are like a lot of achievements that I can even see in Instacar portfolio.
Yeah.
So to list all of them actually will take us the whole session. So, so that's quite great of an achievement also. Coming to you, Sudarshan, how we would like to know how did you got the idea about Strata and how was your beginning?
Perfect. So both our co-founders, both of us are husband and wife. So there's a different level of understanding. We've been married for about 4 years, know each other for about 6.5, 7 years. So that's one of the big issues which I've felt, usually finding a right co-founder. I think this was pretty much solved because we knew how it works and everything. So this whole idea came up. So we both are from Chennai. She's from Hyderabad, I'm from Chennai. We were married in Chennai. We were here with my family for about a year. I wanted to move to Bangalore obviously for the business what I was getting into in private equity, and only two markets were brimming. It's either Bombay, in fact not even Bombay for that matter, I would say rather Gurgaon and Bangalore were the two biggest markets for private equity with which it was growing. So the space I wanted to be, you rather be in the market instead of staying outside the market, right? So we moved. Priyanka was lucky to get a job at WeWork, so she was the first employee in the real estate department at WeWork. So massive amount of office space leasing is what she was doing. I was doing my own legal practice, whatever it is, trying to making decent amount of money for that matter. But then what was something we realized, and this is something for the last 2-3 years was hitting me, was that, legal as a business was that it is very, very person dependent, right? And you cannot compete with these large brands today because there are not 10-20-year-old firms. They're all 50-100-year-old firms. They come with legacy of brand name and everything. So for a newcomer, it's very, very difficult for you to compete with them. But single-handedly, you can do. When I say you cannot be a brand, that means if Sudarshan is not there, then the client would not get the work done by anybody else, right? So, on holidays I was working. On Sundays I was working. So, I realized, what is this? I mean, you should rather be in a business where even if you sleep, you should make money and not have dependency on the name of you, but rather the brand itself, right? So for the last 1.5 years, trying to evaluate what can I do, something which is more scalable, where I can deploy a team which does not run on, me, but runs more on if I can build with a team and, the team can scale that up as well. So both of us had decent amount of savings. Obviously she was pretty well paid. I was crossing something well as well. So we were looking at investing in Bangalore. Obviously, one thing which everyone does is pehle real estate mein invest karo. If you see, typically real estate is usually 50-60% of one's portfolio for that matter, right? Small or a big guy for that matter, at least 50-60%. There are guys with 80-90% also portfolio. Like I have friends who are working at Amazon, etc., who have a house loan, which ideally takes, I don't know, for 10 years they're gonna keep serving. and they're indebted, with everything put together. They're locked down and they probably can never explore entrepreneurship itself for that matter because of the loan they haven't had. So we had good amount of money. We had about 1.5 crores of savings. We wanted to buy something in Bangalore. We were very clear because we didn't want to stay in Bangalore forever. We had to move back to Chennai. This was more a vacation period for us to do something explorative. So it didn't make sense to buy a house there. Rental economy rocks. But commercial made sense because Bangalore was growing and it is continuously keep growing, right? So, but for 1.5 crores, you get nothing at all. So we got good opportunities. And a lot of your friends might also come and tell you that, hey, whenever you invest, you tell me, I'll also participate with you. I do a lot of startup investments. I've invested in about 32 startups till date. So many of my friends come, jab bhi tu karta hai, let me know, I'll participate, etc. But then issues which happen is either he might not see the same vision I see in the company. He might not have that liquidity which is required at that given time for you to invest, and bunch of other reasons why sometimes deal does not go through. Startup is very different. You're raising $1 million, you got $950,000. You'll say, "ठीक है, चलो round close करो, let's move forward," right? Whereas property business does not work that way. You need 1 million, you need 1 million. The landlord will not even sell you for 999 also for that matter, right? So which is when we felt that, okay, is there any way we can solve this issue? People have been co-investing and buying together. Friends buy together, families buy together, brothers buy together. But then as a lawyer, I've seen a lot of litigations happening in this space where brothers are fighting, friends are fighting. Mere ko bechna hai. He does not want to sell. I want to lease it at this price. He does not want to lease it at this price. I don't want to do the asset upkeep to maintain the property. Bunch of other things which happen as such, right? So we felt, okay, how can we create a platform or create something where people trust the platform rather than trust their friend or their brother itself for that matter. And the platform has governing rules with respect to how this can be done. So this is how the whole idea came. Then while doing research, we identified that what we are trying to do is in India, happening in a very, very large unorganized manner, nothing in the organized manner as such, but in the West, in US, etc., there are at least 20 companies who all as a market cap is itself about $20 billion as an industry in just 5 years. So we said that I think India is a far bigger opportunity from a commercial real estate standpoint, especially Bangalore itself. It's a city, it's a country itself. What large countries like Germany does not have that kind of inventory, Bangalore is sitting on. So which is when we were very keen that, okay, why not solve this issue? Solves two types of people. One, with smaller ticket sizes, retail investors can look at investing in something which is getting them 7-8%. And for large HNIs, they can diversify their portfolio. Instead of putting money in one thing, they can now put across 4, 5, 10, 20 assets, have a diversified portfolio. It's not just about different assets, but even different, tenant backgrounds. So if I had all my assets, say 2 of my properties, both given to, for let's assume Swiggy for that matter, right? Now Swiggy's laid off 1,100 employees. I'm out of business overnight. My ROI for that entire goes off. So that was one. And very importantly, we felt in this country today, alternative assets are not as mainstream as how normal securities assets are. We felt alternative asset is great, and if you have an underlying asset as real estate, आपको इंडिया में ज़्यादा बेचने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, right? It's roti kapda makan. Makan is real estate. Everyone understands real estate. Even if they don't, they feel they do for that matter. So we felt this is a great opportunity for you to tap that, give good marquee properties, lease to marquee tenants in smaller ticket size, and they can start owning. So that's how we started. Both of us left our job. I left my practice. Priyanka had to serve 3 months of her, her notice for that matter. So we went all in. We said, we have savings, so there's nothing which can hamper us. For worst come worst, we can sustain easily for 2-3 years. And at the end of the day, we are Marwadis, so we know how to make money. At the end of the day, we can create another stream of revenue for ourselves somehow or the other. So that's when it happened. We took a leap of faith. We started off. We did 1-2 transactions with a small team, which we could do very lean. I mean, we had some really crazy days to which, we started doing our operations for that matter. Then we got a couple of VC investors who were very excited about the opportunity because the market size was huge. They approached us and said, if you're looking at funds, we are happy to back you. So that happened in a big way. In fact, when we were chasing investors, everybody was like, no, you're too small. This doesn't make sense. And then when we gave up, then VCs reached to us and said, "Kya paisa le lo?" So it was something which was very different as a business vertical altogether. But I think if you do your business right and have a clear vision and goal, I think there are enough and more investors today ready to back you with all practical purposes. So today we are at 82 crore in AUM. Even during lockdown, we launched an asset. We did a warehousing asset. We realized commercial office assets won't do well. Let's do warehousing transactions. Warehousing is doing well. In 10 days, we raised about 22 crores out of the 50 crores which we're looking at raising, which is honestly normal for the current situation we are in. But again, people are very keen to invest in long-term stable incomes. The fear is a lot. So people are looking at more stable assets to invest in, etc. So we felt that this is probably the demonetization moment how Paytm had is what we look at for our business vertical also, where people might start looking at this in a much bigger manner altogether. So yeah, so that's how our business journey has been.
All right. So even in case of difficult times, you say the real estate businesses are working out very well. And I can see in your the startup newsletter as well that the warehouse project that you launched that has already raised 30% of the investment that you tend to raise, right? So yeah, we have some startups actually in our participants who are real estate based, and that is like a good sign that you've even said that the real estate or the commercial real estate is like into a positive. The VCs can also be into a positive attitude towards your startup per se. And this is like one of the most rare moments that even in my whole experience in terms of private equity or startups or in terms of any kind of fundraising that the investors have asked somebody, कि हमारा पैसा ले लो. That is like one of the most rare moments that you've achieved. so that's like we have a small brief about all three of you, and it's like very incredible stories about how you started, the port or the situation we are in right now is definitely difficult, but everyone is looking towards growing. Everyone is looking towards trying to raise their first pitch, which is most of our participants here. So coming to that topic, I would like to know, starting from you, Samarth, what exactly was your first pitching experience like? The fundraising experience, and how did you start? So how was it like? You mute, I think.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So I think the eagerness to pitch is something which all entrepreneurs have to really deal with. And that's a carrot you want to buy it as soon as possible, right? And that's exactly what happened to us. Despite being coming from an experienced background, so to say, okay, we rushed into our first pitch. Okay, I remember it was with an HNI, with a half-baked plan, with no clarity in terms of the roadmaps or the unit economics, and these are all terms that we are confidently using today. But at that point of time, it was something of a rarity, because while you knew the business and you had the passion for it to translate into numbers and translate it into a vision, also it takes its own time, right? And I remember going to this gentleman along with my co-founder. We met him. I was also based in Bangalore, so meeting would obviously be in a coffee day, right? So that's how it happened. And we did share what we were trying to do, but through the conversation itself we realized that damn, we are all over the place, right? And we needed to do a little more work on our business objectives, milestones, and even with the money, what are we going to use it for, right? So all those elements basically came together over a period of time. But one takeaway from that first conversation was that having that clarity of thought, okay, even if you don't have all the numbers aligned, or even if you don't have the entire roadmap together, at least for the next 12 to 24 months, what exactly are you going to do and how exactly are you going to do it needs to be absolutely clear, where probably the first pitch ideally anybody would make. So yeah, that was my first experience.
Okay, so coming to you, Priyanshi, could we have an highlight about how your first pitching experience was?
So we were pretty naive of how to raise funds. We were in Indore, and it's not a very common community there. And also today to now, it's it has not there. So we just knew how like, as in we were like building contacts through one of the social media channel that I'll name lately. So we were just building contacts. Then we just thought, okay, the pitching is like we just have to explain the business, and we just have to tell them, okay, this much money we need to do the business. So we used to think that, and our first call that we aligned with very famous this thing VC firm. So like what we used to do was we used to like pitch, as in give the business idea and tell them about how much we want to raise initially. Then whatever questions they used to ask us, like who are your competitors, what is your revenue models, and all these things. Then like based on those questions, we started preparing up the pitch. So like this was like this was a process that we were taking up. Like in after like 5 to 6 calls, we were like done with the pitch finally. And we do like we did actually pitch lots of investors, and there was this one person finally who actually was we just sent him the pitch, and we just had like actually 2 calls with him, and he then decided okay, I want to like put money onto you. So that was it. So it's just about like so with us, with Instacar, there's always been, we have like experimented a lot, and we learned a lot of things by ourselves, by just doing and just like learning out of it, and then like implementing it. So our process was always like clear in terms of like business, pitching, and everything. So it was like that.
All right. So next, Sudarshan, could we have a little bit of the idea about yours?
Sure. So we started pitching when we just had a PPT, for that matter, right? And I come from private equity background, so I understand, what all you need to look at from a business. But something again, I fundamentally went wrong. That just don't go with an idea. It doesn't make sense, no matter how novel it is. Go out, prove it yourself, create a proof of concept. These are investors who are looking to deploy money, so you don't have to go reaching to them. They'll reach out to you if you are doing something phenomenal. Like Zerodha is one classic example. Every VC is on their door saying कि पैसा ले लो, etc. And he says, I don't want it because I'm self-sustainable for that matter, right? So that is something. But again, fundamentally, this is what it is. If you have a good team, because any angel rounds is effectively only getting banked on the promoter or the promoter group for that matter. So the team is the most important thing. Second, what anybody looks at is obviously the kind of industry market size you're looking at. And if it's a virgin market, you're welcomed with garlands to their offices as such, because again, you cracked one of the very, very good problem statements, and you're solving that at a larger scale. So the opportunity is big, that even if there are 2-3 competitors, you can always sustain. Like say third-party logistics, I think there are about 7-10 heavily VC funded companies, still such a large opportunity to solve, and everyone's becoming a unicorn in itself, right? So that is where the thing is, when we started pitching earlier, we were all having an idea. Nobody said no, but nobody said yes either. So we're 5-6 meetings with several VCs. We're like, what is happening as such? I for a second failed that, okay, are we doing the right thing or not? But both of us had left our jobs. We had no option, but we said, okay, dekha jayega, let's start doing it. If not, it'll just be a good experience for us, both of us anyway. So yeah, so that's how it all begun. And the rest of the things are very different to the way it paved out, but not as such what we had planned at all, for that matter. To days where we had no one to back, to the days where we had 4 term sheets in our hands.
That's nice. That's nice. So, Sudarshan, continuing with your statement, like you said, so what will be your advice on our startups, to how to be prepared in terms of approaching the investors?
So, guys, one thing is, if you're very early stage, in my opinion, is you can avoid venture capitalist investors for now. In my opinion, better is to meet angel investors who are in your industry, who can act as advisors, because they can take you leaps and bounds. All the money which a VC might give you, you might be burning that money to learn the trade and then do it. Perhaps a good mentor and a good advisor or a good angel investor will help you scale that up in no time, and you don't have to keep doing that thing as well. So my recommendation is usually to have good advisors, good angel investors who know the space, to back you early on, because, that also attracts a lot of VCs. They themselves have a lot of VC connections to that, attracts a lot of VCs. So best is always to have good advisors, good mentors who you work with initially. Get your proof of concept. Take a small angel round. Doesn't matter if you dilute 5-10% more than what you would have ideally diluted, but this will help you scale time. Because in startup world, what is important is only time. It's not the money. It's not the value. You'll get the money. Some other investor would throw money at you eventually, or whatever. But the time at which it takes you from an idea to a mark, like how Priyanshi told us, we got a market fit product for that matter, to something which you can scale eventually, is something which is very, very important. So that market fit, in fact, you should, Priyanshi can answer more on how long it took for her to get that market fit product for that matter. But that is something which is critical, that if you got that market fit, there are enough and more investors ready to back you. So go clear. In fact, the way I look at it is, don't run behind money. In fact, let those VCs run behind you. So you focus on doing your business. And in today's time, the whole idea of a startup is now going to change a little bit. It's going to be now more dhanda. If your economies and unit economics doesn't make sense, no VCs are going to back you anymore. So gone are the days where they used to keep fueling on customer acquisition costs. Gone are the days where they keep fueling for growth. But if you can't have clear visibility of profitability happening, I don't think so anyone's going to back you anyway. So focus on doing dhanda. I will make money. It's not that I'll keep burning for 20 years of my life and then I'll start making money. Those explorative VCs have all learned, burned their fingers royally, lost millions of dollars, and now no longer want to do. And COVID is perhaps one of the best examples, because many VCs are going to have a lot of their portfolio companies going bankrupt. Because no other new VC is going to look at, all the other VCs are going to look at only supporting their existing portfolio companies for that matter, instead of taking a bet on a new company altogether. So that's what the best is. Get a good advisor, a good angel investor who understand your business, are a part of your business. Work with them, and then go out and raise money.
Okay. So, Samarth, I'd like to ask you in terms of your advice for our startups, like, how to be prepared in terms of approaching potential investors, and how did you, what was your success story behind that?
So I think I align with what Sudarshan is saying, especially in the early stage startup rounds. Okay. It's important, first of all, to know how much money you want. Okay. We read too much these days, either on the internet or offline, and we tend to believe that that is the real world. But the world is real based on whatever working that you have done and whatever outline in terms of business that you have prepared. So it doesn't mean that every round needs to be a multi-million-dollar round or even $1 million round for that matter. Even if, and I think the realignment in terms of investment of investors also shows us that people, all the investors, they love proof of concepts, that you have picked a particular market or picked a particular target group, okay, a TG as we call it, and have proven early success. To replicate that success and to scale up that success is not difficult, but to achieve the unit economics, as they say, no longer are people supporting burn initiatives, right? That you keep on burning for the next 10, 15 years, and there is a ray of hope which is very, very bleak. You would want to see profitability early. Okay. So building business models also around that, rather than the typical Me Too approach, which a lot of people take, saying that, okay, I will be, acquired very quickly by somebody. So I think, looking within is also very important before you go out there asking for money. And in the initial rounds, they have that term, right? Friends, family, and fools, right? So a lot of time that works. And while that works, what it doesn't add in terms of value is the guidance that probably a high net worth individual or a mentor or somebody who is in a similar industry and putting in money would basically, provide for the same. So choose your early investors also very smartly. As Sudarshan said, that don't look at just the money part of it. Look at somebody who can guide you, and the early rounds are the ones which will take maximum equity from your organization. So you need to be a little smart about it and not just greedy about it.
Right. Even in our masterclass that we were doing on our classroom sessions, I have mentioned is, the first aspect that the investors look about is for the team. Like, many of my conversations, even VC circles, was uh, they would rather fund a B grade product with an A plus team or doing it vice versa. So, how true is that in your opinion?
The question is to me.
Yeah, Samarth, to you. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think that is the fundamental of at least our success. In fact, in all our presentations that we have made to the VCs in the last one and a half year almost, the first slide has been the team. Okay,
Right.
even before we talked about what our proposition is, because we said that is where we have the the strength. We have two founders with a cumulative experience of over 25 years. You don't get that very often. You have mentors and advisors who come with massive multi-industry experience, and we have people in the team who come from varied backgrounds and adding value in a very structured manner. So there's no reason for you to keep that right at the end, like the movie credits coming in, after the entire plot is done.
Right.
So create and build the story around this team, and I think people really loved and lapped up that idea.
All right. So, yeah, Priyanshi, coming on to you, like, both of them actually suggested on, how to advise our startups in terms of approaching those potential investors, how to be ready. So, my actual question to you is, how much patience does a founder need to keep in terms of their fundraising activities or in terms of proof of concept? How did you actually start in your first check and how long did it take? That is what I would like to know from you.
So it took us like 6 months, and like for the first check, and it was a very tiring process. And it was exciting as well, like waking up with the rejection mail or something. So it is little like disappointing plus exciting, but you have to keep on trying. There's this book called Venture Deals. In the first line, it is written there. Firstly, you have to believe you can raise funds, and like you have to actually believe. You have to be consistent. It's not about like giving up. It's more about like being consistent in what you do. And just to add up on a few things, I think Samarth and Sudarshan has all like almost covered all the points, how much you should know, like how much money you want to raise. Then you can raise from the angel investors initially. Just the mistake that we did like initially was like not all VC firms or not all angel investors are looking forward to invest in all sectors. So you should be very you should do your like pre-research, like who are the investors who are like investing in your kind of sector, maybe into real estate, into mobility, into pharmaceuticals. So this is the one point that I wanted to add, like do research about which kind of investors are looking forward to invest in your particular sector. So yeah, that's it. Like this is like what we did. It took us like 6 months, but we have heard the stories of other entrepreneurs that they closed their round in a week, in a month kind of thing. There's this recent article from Y Combinator. It said that you have to build relation with your investors before actually pitching them about how much you want to raise. So building the relation takes like a month, 2 and 3 months kind of time. So it depends on the founders. It depends on your product. So yeah, this is the thing. That's it.
So an adjoining question
Can I just add there,
Sure.
if you don't mind? So
Sure,
I think Priyanshi brought out a very important point, which probably I wanted to also add in my thing. The fact that your investors have some sort of a known unknown chain. Okay.
Right.
The first set of investors which come in somehow have a direct or an indirect impact on the next set, and the next one will have some sort of a direct or an indirect impact on the next one. Okay. So a lot of times, like in our case, the first set of investors very clearly, with their reputation and their standing in the industry, soft influence the second investor who brought in 4x the amount that they brought in, right? So it's important that the first guy is very critical. He's
Right.
chosen very well and very sharply. Okay, so that it helps you in the further rounds. While we always think, chalo abhi paisa humne utha liya hai, chalo we'll survive. Okay, its survival is there. Okay, but
Right.
survival will also end with this first set of money coming in. So picking out that first set of investor or investors is a very critical and a thoughtful job, I would say. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Yeah.
So I'll ask this question to Sudarshan. Sudarshan, actually, in all of these aspects, in terms of connecting with your investors and your potential investors. So, what is the strategy that we should follow? This question actually applies to all three of you. If you want to participate in that question, starting with Sudarshan, like, would like to know, how you founders initiated the first steps in your fundraising activities and establishing the contacts with your potential investors. Sudarshan, you're mute, I think.
So two ways, guys. One is don't go out only asking for money. It's always a good option to start off by taking advice if what you're doing is it the right way from mentors as such. You can indirectly make that transaction into a pitch in itself, but ideally it's a way where you first, hey, we want to just evaluate with you, or how do you think this is, how it is happening? Is that, based on the experience, what you have in the industry, you can guide us on how can we do it better, where can we improvise, bunch of other things. That's one of the best ways. But very important thing is always get references if you're looking at raising money at any given point of time. References work far better than anything else. Have friends, people who know, and probably fellow investee companies of them, or other friends who are there who can put in a word, have a reference, because that will take you more leaps and bounds further than a normal application if you would make to them, because they are spammed with several business plans every day, for that matter. So if a reference comes in, that definitely adds value. But from an angel investor point of view, start off by just taking advice. Let them be intrigued that they are looking at participating. They'll eventually ask you if you're doing something good and right. They will eventually ask you that, hey, are you looking at raising funds? Or you could, in your conversation itself, you can say, so we're looking at even raising funds. How do we go about doing that? So turn the conversations from, instead of direct pitch, to an indirect pitch where you take feedback from them and then you convert. So in terms of finding who's the right investor for you, like how Priyanshi and Samarth have already covered, it's good for you to identify people who can add value to you in your business. Reach out to only them. LinkedIn is one very good way for that matter. Again, you have common friends. You can always reach through common friends, get some meeting. Make most of your 20-30 minutes what that person would give you in terms of making a mark with your. So don't have to show your A game always, and more importantly, show the bigger picture. No VC, no angel investor likes you to think conservatively. Wants you to think that, okay, our vision is to make it the largest company in this space, or whatever it is. So your vision, your plan also needs to have that same vision, of what at least you think with respect to how you would want to scale this up bigger and bigger. So there's no point thinking small. If you want to think small, you want to make it high. For me, income minus expenses profit, that's my business valuation. That doesn't work. For startups, you need to look at scaling up fast. But again, unit economics has to make sense in these times. As such, it was not pre-COVID, that was not such an important thing, but now it is very important. So focus on all sides, cut costs as much as possible, be frugal. These are things which can take you long even when you want to scale your organization.
All right. So, connecting your equation to the next question, I'd like to ask Samarth. Samarth, like he said, like you have to identify what kind of investors was your addition itself, or identifying who the angel investors or the VCs might benefit your product. So, how did you actually identify your first round of investments, or the Mumbai Angels who connected? So, how do you as a startup choose, like, this guy or this investor is actually a good person to bring on board in terms of advisor or an investor?
Right. So I think every round that we have raised, we have always looked at obviously what is the quantum that that particular investor is bringing in, and obviously what value are they going to also bring to the table. Okay. Instead of Mumbai Angels, I'll take you to the first investors. Okay. When we were a plan on paper, okay, we said that, okay, we're going to start our journey from Goa. Okay. While we are starting our journey from Goa, the intent was obviously not to be a corner shop in Goa itself, right? We wanted to be a pan-India international enterprise. Okay. But since we were based over there, we felt that, okay, how do we ensure that the investor who comes on board will add value not just for my Goa journey, but also beyond. And that is when we decided on the two gentlemen who were the industry icons in Goa, but very well recognized outside of Goa as well. Okay, so we had the Dempo Group and the Salgaonkar Group, which are basically the number one and number two or group of company. They are each about 10,000 crore group companies themselves. Okay, and there is no near competition from that point of view. So what it did was that my first pilot in Goa was essentially backed with not just the core team, but also investors who are based in Goa, and it helped give that sort of recognition to this idea. Otherwise, it was being in tourism, and especially in Goa, there is very high chance of it getting cornered as just another tourism venture. Okay, whereas we wanted to literally strip off the history of tourism activities and write a new chapter, so to say. And this is exactly how it helped, right? Having the two best names in the industry, maybe local from that point of view, but sizable enough to be known across the country. So
Right.
when the next investor, which was DNA Entertainment, who was Bangalore based, when they came in, we didn't have to introduce our investors, the first set of investors, to them. They said, oh, these guys have invested. So it sounds like, it's a stable organization and a stable idea, right? So
Right.
it makes a lot of sense to do that. And as again, Sudarshan rightly said, being network, right? Sitting in your house and saying, we are doing some awesome work doesn't really, count. At least 10 people who are in your ecosystem or industry, they need to know that you are doing some good work.
Right.
And you're probably, being relevant out there. And you really don't know who out of those 10 people will stand up as an investor, or they will connect you to some investor at some point of time, either on their own or with your initiation. So both the things I feel are extremely important. Having your own plans in place and everything is absolutely fine, but also maintaining the network which is relevant to you. In our case, it's the electric vehicle industry as well as the hospitality industry. So we need to be relevant in both those, and we keep ensuring that there is enough and more communication. And just to add, because we raised the last round in a very, very tough situation. Okay.
Right.
I think the post-COVID world is a very different world for everyone, not just for the startups, but also for the investors. Everything will be looked at, very minutely. Everything will be dissected very critically. So it might sound it might sound very negative for a lot of startups, but when there is pressure from the fund, the investors also have to behave in the same manner. Okay, and all the funds are currently under pressure to perform.
Right. Right.
Okay. So when you are doing the pitch, please don't do that cut copy paste job of representing what you have represented in the pre-COVID era. You need to realign yourself and be more realistic and put things which make you relevant even in the post-COVID era.
Right. So, like you rightly mentioned, in terms of having people in your industry, the particular investors, gives you a tangible story. Basically, gives you a tangible backup rather than an intangible story. So, Priyanshi, coming to you regarding this, how basically you structured your first investment. You structured the investment, which was the first FDI of Madhya Pradesh that Instacar got. So what factor according to you distinguished you as a startup in the venture capital eyes?
So what we did was, so our like initial thing was pitch as many people as you can, kind of. So that's what I said in the previous conversation that we were having. That was the mistake that many startup do. Like initially you have to like figure out who are your potential investors. So again, it's more about like building connection with people, finding the acquaintances. So coming back to the present time, we also raised some amount during this period, during this lockdown period. So that was actually from the acquaintance, like a friend we know, and his friend, he's working in a very his company, he's working in San Francisco with some company, and he was looking forward to invest in India for the very first time. So that's when we spoke with him, and he decided to put the money, and the money came in during this time. Like it's just a week. We did not disclose the news, but we did raise some amount. And previously, back in 2016, we actually started pitching people on the social media channel called LinkedIn. So it's also not about pitching everyone and with whatever content you want to like pitch them with. So it's more about like finding the correct like potential people whom you can like pitch with the correct content. You cannot just like cold pitch like everyone so that they'll find you as a spam. So we actually made a list of approximately 200 people whom we thought they might be the potential investors, and with the correct content, of course, we started like pitching them and messaging them. And then this was the first step. Then second step was if they reply, then we initiate the conversation. Then third step was to initiate the like call with them. And then like the fourth step is discussing more about like what we are doing, if they have any backup questions and all these things. So out of like 200 people, like only one person turned out to be like yes, and out of like 200 we were like the list has turned out to 150 now, 100, 68, 10 people, 11 people. So like when we were in July, when we actually closed the funding, there were like 11 people we were like looking forward who can like potentially give in the money, but they all like rejected at the last moment, and it turned out to be like only one person. So this is what we have done, and currently, so it's been like 4 years of experience now. So now we are like more clear of what should be the actual process of fundraising, and which is actually working for us. For different companies it might work differently. For us, currently like building relations, finding the correct acquaintances, and this is like working out for us. And also one more thing I wanted to say was, we actually need to figure out the chain. Even though if you are like as in pitching on LinkedIn or like off media, you actually need to figure out the chain. Suppose I know someone and he can potentially connect me with someone else who's like looking forward to invest the money. So you should be like actually good at like figuring out the chain like to reach to the correct person.
Right.
So yeah, this is the thing.
So, considering that, I know it might sound silly, but there was one question one person was asked me, how many pitch decks did you actually make and how many edits did you actually do? Do you even remember? Priyanshi, to you.
So this actually the pitch decks, like it keeps on changing. So it's not like always a copy paste thing. So it keeps on changing as per the investor requirement.
Right.
And we try to keep it very simple and to the point, just one liner thing on every slide. And yeah, that's it. That pretty much is, but it's like it's a iteration every time. So like it's not just copy paste, like you have to iterate it.
Sudarshan, would you like to pick it up in this aspect? You mute again. You actually nodded when I asked the question, so would you like to
No, could you just frame the question again? Sorry.
I had asked Priyanshi that how many versions of pitch decks and how many versions of investors you might have edited in your journey in this startup particularly. I'm not asking about your PE investment because that might be a huge list. Just in terms of strata.
No, for Strata only, for that matter. See, earlier when I was doing legal representation. So that was
Right.
not involved in the private equity, the pitch decking part of it. I was involved when the term sheet was issued to the startup for that matter.
Okay.
The way we had done, yes, there were multiple changes. Mostly changes were with respect to growth forecast, with the quantum of money required based on who you're pitching for that matter. These were a few changes, but as such, the fundamental business was the same. And I don't think so. You should have a two mindset with respect to what you're doing. People look at transparency and people look at the clarity of vision more importantly. So I think that was something which was never changed. The 80% of our deck never changed at any. In fact, it is still the same. And I don't think so. In the next 2 years, we might be changing that as well because that's core to what we want to do, and that's not going to change. We might add new products as such,
Right.
but again, nothing as such is going to change for us to what a fundamental. But yes, the number sheet changes every now and then.
Okay.
Your forecasting to your actual projections, to your reality, to the team requirement. You never know. We earlier thought that we could be a team of just 10 people, 20 people run the show. We are already 30, in fact, looking at hiring another 10. So, it's only when you go in depth, you realize that you're here to create a brand. You're here to create a business. There are several things which require for a machinery to work. It cannot be done one-man show. More importantly, at least that's how I used to think earlier. You need to digress so that you as an entrepreneur can focus on the core things, and you need to always build a team. Like how Samarth mentioned that my first page itself is team. For us also, in fact, the only thing we bank, the only thing we tell to anybody today is only about our team. Then we speak about business and the product which is there, but the team is what is your brand at the end of the day and what you should position out. And more importantly, somebody who you should carefully hire. Wrong hirings can drag you or can take your company 2 months, 3 months, 4 months back also sometimes. So good critical hiring is very, very important. So don't be aggressive. Again, I understand for an early stage company, hiring is a big issue itself. You talk to 9 out of 10 founders, everyone will only keep cribbing about hiring. Achhe log milte nahi, etc. But then that's very critical for you, for your business, that if you cannot, don't bargain on second. Find somebody who are equally as motivated. It's not about them clocking 18 hours, 20 hours of work, but I'm saying even if they clock 8 hours, if it's equivalent to 18 hours of work, I think you can kill it in no time. So we had created a 10% ESOP pool. Believe it or not, we've already allocated 7.5. So we went very, very choosy with respect to who we are having on board. For that matter, and we've been very generous purely because it's good to have them also as equally invested in the company. And my pitch is very clear that how much you can make in salary, you can make 5x that and your equity exits itself. So what are you inclined with? One is which can take care of your immediate needs. One is which can take care of your luxury needs. So focus on the luxury piece. Immediate needs are anyway being taken care of irrespective.
That's actually a very good advice. So, yeah, some of my question sets is over. So let's hear it from the audience as well. If you want to ask any question to our panelists, you can put it in the chat box. But just that is one request. Just please mention the name of the panelist you want to ask the question to, so that will make me more easier to communicate with all three of you. So, coming to an era like a post-COVID era at this point of time, it is going to be very difficult, like you have definitely suggested. So, back to you, Sudarshan. Considering the real estate as a sector, it seems a bit lucrative in the upcoming months. So, what is your opinion, for startups in this particular sector, and a little bit about how Strata also aims to tackle this challenge?
Super. So, as soon as the whole COVID thing came, and then all these these discussions about the fact that work from home is going to become a business, etc., we felt our business is over for that matter. In fact, many of our current investors itself felt up to Strata khatam ho gaya, etc. We kya rakha, because no one's going to buy office, no one's using office, so why will I invest in an office? I'm never going to make money, etc. So this is what a typical sentiment of a fearful investor is, or a fearful person is, right? And in when you're in money making business, you should not have that fearful attitude. You should have that greedy attitude. So when the whole market is fearful, that's when you start getting greedy. You start need to thinking on trends in 2008, how it happened, and what has outperformed. What are the other repercussions? Like I'll give you a classic example. Say US, etc., is infusing more and more money into the economy. That means the economy is going to get even more expensive. Clearly evident with the dollar jumping up to such high prices. India is still the same. Rentals are still the same. The cost of labor is still the same, but your revenues are still in dollars for that matter, right? So I see once the whole COVID thing ends, companies would start looking at cutting costs, etc. That's when these guys would now start looking at offshoring even further, because India is still a cheaper destination. And now that dollar is 10-15% higher than what it is, that means same change is now available at 15% discount in India at the same time, right? So I feel very different. I feel that this is probably the glorious moment India is ever going to see since independence, for that matter. Not even globalization. I would go back till 1940s and say that's the kind of an opportunity we are sitting on. Again, our bureaucrats have to be smart enough to capitalize at the same time. Thankfully, we can hope we have a good government which would be focused. But again, we need support from state governments to attract those companies to work here. But then that's the opportunity where I see companies to come here even further. Yes, short term, 3 to 6 months. Obviously, everyone's scared. No companies want to take liability of calling employees to office and making them work. But then this is the most beautiful part about India. You cannot, or probably the world itself, you cannot discount real estate in anything. Okay, so if work from home nahi chal raha hai, to consumption story बढ़ रहा है. You're all sitting at home, you're consuming more, right? Usually you might not have been eating those many number of biscuits. You're now eating those many biscuits. Every 1 hour you'll go back to your kitchen or to your storeroom and say, okay, what's there to eat? This is just a human tendency, right? That's how it works as such. So if work from home becomes a norm, consumption is going to grow up. If consumption grows up, what is the requirement which will grow up is warehousing. So we said, okay, let's focus on what is a sunrise sector in India. It's going to be warehousing because of this. Another thing, Geo's entering into e-commerce. It's going to be a much bigger business in itself. It's going to get even more organized, which means today we are at a $40 billion business per year in e-commerce. It's going to grow to about a $100 billion business in the next 5 years to 8 years. So the thumb rule is very clear. If $1 billion AUM is added in e-commerce business, which means another 10 lakh square feet of warehousing space is required for every $1 billion of sales, right? Because of the kind of requirement. I mean, if you guys had ever ordered from Amazon, you would have seen one product goes to at least 3 or 4 warehouses before it reaches to your house at the same time, right? So that is the requirement, that if this has to keep growing up, and this is something, the best part about our business is we deal with all the HNIs because our ticket size is 25-50 lakh rupees. So these are all VPs, managing directors of these large tech companies like of Accenture, of Amazon, etc. The insights we get from them makes our whole perception about business so different in itself. Like, let me give you an example. Like Amazon's employee had told me that, with this whole COVID, the next 100 million users which we wanted to onboard, at literally no cost we got them on board because everyone was sitting online. We threw ads and everyone downloaded Amazon and is now browsing on Amazon itself. Right? They had to double their server capacity for Amazon.in because of the sheer amount of browsing. You cannot buy anything, but still people are browsing and reviewing, checking. They're placing orders for future, etc. Plus, obviously, digital payments is getting stronger and stronger in India. So I just see e-commerce growing here more and more. Many companies, the CAC was absolutely zero. Education companies, all these online grocery, all these companies. So best opportunity, if you look at, so from a real estate point of view, we felt this is the best opportunity. Office will come back next year because you can't work from home forever as much as you can think it is possible. It is very taxing, but there are quite a lot of early, strong, bold statements made by large companies. So that's when we took a little conservative and we said, okay, let's look back. But warehousing is only going to keep growing. If companies from China are going to move here, it'll grow. Many companies have realized how bad their supply chain is. So they'll move into more organized warehousing. A bunch of other things which we realized, let's go what the market trend is and offer that as an investment product to our investors so that they make money. So one thing is there, in India, you cannot discount real estate at all, no matter what.
That is true. Because we are into the wealth management sector as well. So what are usual angel investors or the HNIs who invest into financial instruments, the market being unstable, some of them prefer into a long-term base, some are diverting their funds. And startup as an asset class is actually growing. like an alternate investment asset class is actually growing in terms of the angel investors, putting money into these startups and all. Even we have a lot of database in terms of those angel investors who are thinking about investing into startups, into that space. That's quite true. That's a good opportunity even for these startups to tap in. So coming to you, Samarth, like the real estate sector, even the hospitality and travel sector which you are in will be presenting a challenge more than any other sectors actually. So what is your strategy going forward, and any advice for the startups which are coming up in this particular industry?
I think one thing which we have to always remember, that we are in India and we have the power of the billions with us. Okay.
Right.
And, just the way Sudarshan was saying, that regardless, what you do in terms of what space you are in, what vertical you are in, if you are able to address a segment of this billions of people, you are home. Okay, and you have to address it in a proper way. So in terms of travel and hospitality, right, and that's the industry which is probably the most affected in this entire gamut. We've been doing our research in the last 2 to 3 months of this entire pandemic. What is coming out to us is that domestic tourism is going to go through the roof. Okay, whenever the industry opens up in terms of travel or in terms of restrictions being lifted, there are people which are literally dying to travel out. Okay, so all your absolutely not just Goa for that matter, all the drive-to locations. Okay, so they will avoid the airports. But if you're in Bangalore, you'll go to Ooty, Pondicherry, Coorg, Mysore, all these locations. Agar aap Bombay or Pune mein hai, Goa, it becomes a very easy destination. If you're in Delhi, you'll go across to Jaipur, Jodhpur. So what it will trigger is, one is the wallet share of wallet share in terms of experiences will definitely go up. Okay, why? Because people who are normally going to spend, let's say, 100 rupees going to a European country, they still have the same, probably, if not 100, they would expect to spend 80, and they would expect a premium experience at the level what probably they received in those countries. Okay, so looking at that space, if you are able to put out a product or a service which caters to this audience, you are pretty much home. So Priyanshi should be smiling all the way, because people will be driving through Instacar in the next 12 to 24 months for sure.
So yeah, definitely coming to Priyanshi itself. So again, how does Instacar aim to tackle these challenges that are set forward in the COVID times? And also, I have a question in the private chat. You can actually post it on the open forum as well. So it is for you, Priyanshi, that how does Instacar aim at tackling the challenges? And the question from the audience is, like you mentioned, safety. So it is going to be fear in the hearts of people actually to travel in closed spaces. So how do you tend to overcome it?
So for the record, first of all, airport is starting tomorrow, 20. And currently also we are facing a huge demand. That's it's a huge demand for tomorrow, and Bangalore airport has actually started the full capacity. So people will travel, and though it's just 2-3 months, they people have stopped traveling. If they have been given options still to travel, because our government started buses and the trains. So people started actually traveling. So I'm from this place called, it's near Indore, called Devas. So my mother was telling me that there's this guy who stays near my house. So he used to work in Bangalore. So the train started, he actually traveled from Bangalore to Bhopal and Bhopal to Devas. And it took him 40 hours to reach to Devas. So as soon as you start the travel facility, people will travel. So for the safety measures, so government has currently given regulation that only 2 people plus the driver can travel inside the car. Actually nobody actually cares about the safety right now. Interestingly, they are currently asking because since after 2 months they are traveling back to their houses, so people are still asking for discounts and not more about hygiene. So we were also very, though we took all the precautions, our cars are cleaned every time after all the rides, and we have put those plastic sheet
between the drivers and the passengers is what I saw.
Yes, and even we do the test of the drivers every time in the morning. He should not have temperature and all these things. These all things we are doing. But as soon as the airport started, people have again started asking for discounts, not of the hygiene. They are just okay, cab will come or not. That is my the primary thing I want to know. And is your support 24/7 available if car does not show up, and these kind of things. So this travel sector has always been a very huge space also for the new entrants to come in, and also there are existing players doing well. And since the sector is very huge, many people are already as in, there are few big companies, there are on the second layer few companies, and then there are local vendors as well who have their regular clients. So there's space for everyone. Now the thing is how much you can earn out of how much best you can earn out of the transactions and everything that is happening. So we, since in the initial conversation also I said we cater to safety, reliability and quality. So safety now I'm considering for the coronavirus thing, though we have the tracking systems and everything, we have a control room kind of where we can track the cars on the every time where they are going. And reliability, so once people have booked Instacar, so it never gets cancelled. So we are more of a scheduled service, and we give flight back guarantees. So if you miss the flight, if our driver doesn't show up, if you miss the flight, we'll pay for your next flight. This is the kind of guarantee that we give them. So our chauffeurs never cancels the ride. Our rides never gets cancelled. And quality, as in again, cars are always clean and properly maintained because of the model that we have designed in the back end. So I don't think as in the past 2-3 months we are very laid back, but I think it will be little slow for the next quarter, but I think it will recover by the end of this year fully on the full capacity, because currently people are traveling for the personal use. Business travel is less. But I believe after this quarter, business travel will also begin up.
I've got some more questions. Actually, I'll just be taking 2 of them because we're already over an hour. So, okay, this is an interesting question. Sudarshan, I'd like you to take this question actually. As a lawyer, somebody is asking me, in terms of convertible securities and they are gaining popularity, what is your opinion? Startups should prefer that or not? Because ultimately, money coming in is termed as unsecured debt later on in the balance sheet. Sudarshan, you muted.
So sorry, guys. Fundamental thing is it's a good option. In fact, if you ask me, whatever way you're getting money in today's market, just take it. Right? Focus on survival, focus on growth at this point of time rather than valuations or conversions on those lines. But typically, instead of convertible is something which just an investor is taking comfort. If your business is doing very, very well, he'll happily convert it into equity shares. If it's not, then he'll take money, right? So don't need to consider that this is a debt instrument or it's going to be an unsecured loan on my books, because if he's seeing a sizable return possible happening where there are several other VCs who are keen to participate in your business venture for you to scale outright, he will want to negotiate. He'll want to convert it. So it's completely based on how you can perform, how confident you guys are is what you can consider. But it doesn't make a difference if you ask me in today's times. Whatever money comes is very important at this point rather than choosing about how I want to take the money. So this is what my personal advice would be. But otherwise, prima facie, it's always good to have a discount cap put in and a compulsory conversion instead of an optionally converting thing, because it's for your nature of business which is there, and especially as startups for that matter, If there's a loan, repaying that in the event if for whatever reason you're shutting down, etc., is just a nightmarish thing. It affects your CIBIL score, a bunch of other things altogether. So
Right.
not recommended and advised for you to take any kind of a convertible. Take it compulsory convertible. That is what is the best option.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll just add to that, because we actually did that in our rounds. Okay, so
Sure,
that
definitely.
and it really helped. Why it helped is because we were obviously looking at an exponential growth of sorts. After moving from one location to multiple location. So obviously, if you were to undergo a sort of a valuation at that particular stage, it would have been at a much higher equity than what we could have established at a later stage. So we chose CCPS as the instrument to go with, because it gave us a runway, and at the same time the funds also came in. So I agree with that advice which you offered.
All right. So, okay, we have 2 more questions, but I'll answer them very quickly. Yeah, yes, we have a panel of angel investors, and if you want us to connect with and connect you to any of our angel investor network, so you can write to us at info@panorminvestments.in. And okay, this is already answered in the previous segment by Priyanshi itself. So yeah, so that's it, guys. I'd like to thank all the 3 of you to joining in. If there's anything else that you would like to add, please, not a problem at all.
I guess.
From the audience, any questions? All right. So I thank all 3 of you to taking the time out and actually joining, for all of the for your valuable advice being in the startup ecosystem. And thank you for all the participants also to join in. And yeah, all the best for all of your fundraising activities for all 3 of you, also for your companies as well. So thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.